I'm going to start off this morning by reading an entire book of the Bible, all right? Now that just scared some of you already. But we've been spending the summer in the epistles of John. Last week we finished up 1 John, the 5 chapters. Great stuff in the epistles of John. Well, today I want to read 2 John in its entirety. So sit back, get ready. Actually, it's only 13 verses, so I think you can handle, all right? Here we go. The elder, to the chosen lady and her children whom I love in the truth, and not only I, but also all who know the truth, because of the truth which lives in us and will be with us forever. Grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and from Jesus Christ, the Father's Son, will be with us in truth and love. It has given me great joy to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as the Father commanded us. And now, dear lady, I am not writing you a new command, but one we have heard from the beginning. I ask that we love one another. And this is love, that we walk in obedience to His commands. As you have heard from the beginning, His command is that you walk in love. Many deceivers who do not acknowledge Jesus Christ as coming in the flesh have gone out into the world. Any such person is the deceiver and the Antichrist. Watch out that you do not lose what you have worked for, but that you may be rewarded fully. Anyone who runs ahead and does not continue in the teaching of Christ does not have God. Whoever continues in the teaching has both the Father and the Son. Then if anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not take him into your house or welcome him. Anyone who welcomes him shares in his wicked work. I have much to write to you, but I do not want to use paper and ink. Instead, I hope to visit you and talk with you face to face, so that our joy may be complete. The children of your chosen sister send their greetings. In this little letter that we have from the Apostle John, just let me give a very, very brief background. We believe that it came, of course, after 1 John, and the elder, as it opens up there, is, I believe, the Apostle John. The words, the themes, there's so many things in these two letters, 2nd and 3rd John, that are very similar to what we find in the Gospels and in 1 John. And who's it written to? Well, it says the dear lady, the lady in the household that has the children. Some would say that, well, this represents the church and that the people in the church. But I really prefer to take maybe a little more simplistic approach, and it's just saying that John is writing to a woman in the church, probably a well-known woman in the church, that has children who are following the truth, who are walking in the teaching that she has shared with them. Now, I don't think she held this letter to herself. I think she probably shared it with the congregation and the people there. So it became a letter to everyone. But John wants to encourage, he wants to lift up, and he wants to remind them of some things that he addressed in his first letter. One of those things is false teachers in verses 9 through 13. I'm not going to spend hardly any time on that because I've talked about those in the other sermons as we've gone through 1 John. But there were false teachers there, and he just says, watch out for them. But I want to key in on verse 8. And this letter, as we were to look at one verse that said, all right, this is really the heart of what he's trying to say, I find it there in verse 8. Because he simply says to us in verse 8 these words, watch out that you do not lose what you have worked for, but that you may be rewarded fully. Watch out. I had a professor in college. James Strauss was his name. He was quite a eloquent guy. He was quite dramatic. He was a philosophy professor. Now, just be honest with you, I hated philosophy, all right? But he made it entertaining. And there would be times that he would be talking about some great philosopher, and he'd go on, and then he'd come to the end, and he said, this man changed the world. Other than that, it's insignificant. We'd all just kind of, huh? But he made such a dramatic point. Well, when I read this verse 8, I kind of thought of that. Watch out that you do not lose what you have worked for, but that you may be rewarded fully. It's as if John is saying, look, you've worked hard in your life. You've held on to the faith. You've faced false teaching. You've faced opposition. He said, watch out, hang on to that, or you're going to lose what you worked for, And don't we lose the reward. Other than that, it's insignificant. Eternity. It's so important. So how do we make verse 8 become a reality? How do we live a life that helps us to watch out so that we don't lose what we've worked for? So that we don't lose the reward that is waiting for us in the end? I think that's an important thing to dwell on. In the first 6 verses, I think he shares 2 things. I'm going to sum it up in 2 very simple phrases I think you can take with you today. And the first is simply this. If we want verse 8 to become a reality in our lives, we need to know truth. I don't know if you caught it as we read through there, but that word truth appears several times in that passage. And he wants us to know truth as we look at those first verses there. Know truth. Let me just say a word about the word know. The word knowledge in our language is used in a lot of variety of ways. And as we know, words can mean different things in different cultures. You've probably heard this, the Eskimo language. They have over 200 different words for snow because it's such a part of their life. How many do we have for in Southwest Florida? 1. Yuck, right? But they have 200 because it's such a part of their lives. Well, in the Greek New Testament, in the language that the New Testament was written in, there were actually 8 different words in the New Testament culture that were used for the one word we always translate the word know from. So John here, when he says in verse 1, know the truth, it's important that we understand what he's saying, because there was a type of knowledge that just had to do with head knowledge, facts. It's like 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 plus 2 is 4, and 4 plus 4 is 8, and 8 plus 8 is 16, and I'm going to stop there or I'll mess up, but it's just the facts. There was another word that encompassed not only knowing things, knowing the facts, but also encompassed having life experience or life knowledge. It'd be like someone saying to you, well, do you know Anchor Christian Church? And you'd say, oh, well, yeah, I know Anchor Christian Church. I'm a part of Anchor Christian Church. I could say I know Anchor Christian Church very well because it's very much a part of my life. I know the church. See the difference? It's more than just facts. It's sharing life. It's experiencing joy. It's experiencing heartache. It's experiencing all those things. So we need to understand that when John says and uses this word, know, that he's saying to the church there, I know that there's some there that know the truth, there at the end of verse 1 when he says that. And they are living their life. They've experienced the persecution. They've experienced the fear. They've experienced the struggles. And he writes this little letter to say, hang in there. To those of you who know the truth, who've poured in your life to the truth, keep doing what you're doing. There's some things that we need to know about the truth. One of those in verse 2 is simply this. It's going to be with us forever. I love that phrase. It's a little phrase. It's easy to skip over. Because of the truth which lives in us and will be with us, how long? 2 days? 3 weeks? 4 months? 2 years? Forever. Forever is a long time. And I believe that when we know that the truth is with us forever, it means we have something to stand on. Hebrews 13:8 says, Jesus the same yesterday, today, and forever. Have you ever noticed things change in this world every now and then? Have you ever noticed we live in a society where change is the norm? Where you get something new and you wonder, well, how long will that be before it changes and something new comes out? It's a part of our makeup. It's a part of our culture. But it's also good to know that John reminds us and the Word reminds us, Jesus' Word stands firm forever. I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. That will never change. Forgiveness of sins comes through the blood of Jesus Christ on the cross. That will never change. In a world that's changing so much, John says, look, the truth will be with us forever. We need to know that. The end of verse 3. It says, the Father's Son will be with us in truth. You ever thought of that? How is He with us? I believe John wants them to understand that when they stand on the truth of the Word, that Jesus is standing right there with them. We need to know that we have the Son of God with us when we stand up for what is right in this world. When we have a commitment to do what is right, regardless of what others are doing. When we have faith, we need to know that He is there with us in truth, even when we don't have all the answers. Truth is so important, and He will be with us in truth. He'll be there in the tough times. He'll be there in the low times. He'll be there in the great times and the joyful times. His love, His truth never changes, and He will be with us in the sphere of our existence. You see, truth is foundational. Maybe you've heard of the teacher Ravi Zacharias. Ravi Zacharias is a pretty well-known teacher and Christian author. He tells a story how he was a lecturer at Ohio State University. I'm going to put a picture up here, Sonny, of those buildings there. As he's driving through campus, this is how he records it. He says, "A few weeks ago, I did a lectureship at Ohio State University, and as I was being driven to the lecture, we passed the new Wexner Art Center." And that's a picture of the new Wexner Art Center on Ohio State University campus. And the driver said, "This is a new art building for the university. It's a fascinating building designed in the postmodernist view of reality." Now, what does that mean? Well, the postmodern view means whatever you want to believe is right, and it doesn't ever necessarily all have to come together for everybody and make sense. Well, this architect designed this building to reflect that in its architecture. If you notice the picture on the right, in the building there are stairways that lead to nowhere. There are pillars that come down and they support nothing. The outside of the building, that tower there, that thing you see split, is actually what we would normally think of as a tower that comes together. It's split into two parts. They designed this building. It's 12 degrees off of the rest of the city from the grid they laid out with everything. Everything about that building was designed for the concept of you can do anything, go anywhere, believe whatever you want to believe. Well, Ravi Zacharias, as he was being told about this building, said this to the driver. He says, "Oh, did they do the same thing with the foundation?" And the driver laughed. "Oh, no, you can't do that to a foundation." And the point is, too many people try to take truth and they try to say it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter what you believe, just so it feels good for you. But the truth of God is a foundation. It makes a difference. It's something we can plant our feet on and plant our faith in and remain there steadfast because He is faithful and true and will be with us. So you want to make sure, you want to watch out and make sure that you're not going to lose what you've worked for and that you're going to get the reward that's waiting for you. Then you've got to know truth. You've got to understand it. You've got to believe it. You've got to stand on it. But John doesn't stop there. Because he knows, he understands that it's not just about saying I am correct on everything and I can quote all the verses in the Bible and I can out-debate anybody on any subject when it comes to Christian apologetics and all of this thing. The second thing that he talks about, the second key word, if you look at those 6 verses, you'll find 2 key words. One is truth and the other is love. So know truth, but the second thing, live love. Know truth, live love. John says, to the elder, to the chosen lady and her children, whom I love in the truth. Whom I love. We need to know some things about love, and one of those things is that it builds special relationships. He's writing back to this lady. Why? Because he had a relationship with the church and with the people there because of the foundation of what they shared in the truth of Jesus Christ. You know, it's an interesting thing about relationships in Christ. I've had the privilege to go to a lot of different places in mission trips over the years. I've been to Mexico. I've been to Haiti 3 or 4 times. I've been to the Dominican Republic. Been to the Bahamas. Been to the Philippines, been to Italy, Here in the U.S., I've been to Montana to a children's ranch. I've been to downtown New York City in the Bowery Mission. I've been into New England states where we're working with planting new churches. And you know what's unique in each one of those situations is when we go to those places and you meet people and you find that they are a part of the church and they are Christians, you know what you immediately have? You have a kinship. You have a bond because of the love in the truth. We may be different culturally, we may be different ethically, we may be different economically, we may not look the same, our skin may be different color, but you know what? In Christ, we are one because of the truth that Jesus Christ died for all. And John, I love the way he says it. He says, dear lady, you and your children, I just love you in the truth. And that's something that we need to grasp once again in the church. That special fellowship, that special bond where we care for each other and take care of each other. We're trying to develop small groups. We have 4 or 5 small groups now. Why do we do that? Because there's something different about sitting in an auditorium versus sitting in someone's home, sharing the Word, praying together, sharing life together. We need to develop because love. We need to develop our love with each other because love brings a special relationship. But another thing he says there about love there in verse 2, I like so much, is that whole thing, the truth and love will be with us forever. It's not going away. Christ's love didn't fade away a couple years after the crucifixion. God's love didn't expire at the end of the first 1,000 years, 2,000 years. It's also going to be with us forever. And we need to understand that love is nothing new. John says this several times in his little letters. This isn't anything new. You folks should have heard this. You should have this down by now. This is not a new command that you love one another. And you want to know how that love becomes real? It's when we walk in obedience, when we do what God has asked us to do. Now, I'm not going to expound too much on that because we've talked about those concepts of loving and walking in obedience in those other sermons. But I want to share with you in this concept of love something that we talked about Wednesday night in our Wednesday night Bible study. So those of you who are here, this is a review for you. Those of you who weren't here, here it is. We've been going through a series with Andy Stanley, so I'll give credit where credit is due. Andy Stanley dealt with this topic of what does love require of us? And he made 3 points that I thought were just amazing. And as we think of what John is saying here and what love is, here's the 3 things that he said love requires of us. 1, don't do anything that will hurt you. 2, don't do anything that will hurt someone else. And 3, don't be mastered by anything. Now, some might think, well, that's not a big deal. It doesn't matter how I interact with other people. It's just all about me. Well, no, it isn't, because you happen to be in connection with other people. Don't do anything that will hurt you. Why would he say that? Because when you hurt you, you also hurt those who love you. Those who have had children and have children, even if they're adult children, it doesn't matter. I'm finding that out as a father. When my girls do something that hurts them, when they make a bad decision that hurts them, you know what? You know what? It hurts you, doesn't it? Because your heart aches for them, even though they're the ones that did it, and it hurts you because that love that you share with them is so strong. What does love require of us? What does our love of God require of us? It requires us not to do anything to hurt yourself, because when you hurt you hurt your Father in heaven also, who loves you that much. So in the decisions you make, whether it be decisions about moral issues, whether it be decisions in professional issues, whether it be decisions in relationship issues, don't make decisions that are going to hurt you, because when you hurt you hurt your Father in heaven, and you also hurt those who love you. Second thing he said love requires of us is that we don't do something to hurt someone else. We don't live in an isolated world. We don't live alone. And when we do things to hurt someone else, it hurts others. That may sound redundant, but think of it this way. Can you think of someone you really don't they're not, I won't say you don't like, but they're not your most favorite people. And you see them and oh man, I don't know how I'm going to deal with them. I don't know how I'm going to talk to them. And you go to the grocery store and someone in line is there and they're just being obnoxious, and you go somewhere else, or you're driving. This never happens, but you're driving and you get aggravated at someone else doing something. And you just want to hurt somebody sometimes. Guess what? Jesus died for the person you don't like. Jesus died for the person that irritates you. Jesus died for that person that just drives you crazy. And he says, don't do something that hurts someone else, because when you do, you are hurting the one that I love. Don't do anything that will hurt someone else. That's what love requires of you. This final one, don't be mastered by anything. Don't be mastered by anything, because when you're mastered by something, it diminishes your ability to love someone else. He talked about how people can be mastered by alcohol, and they could be mastered by sexual decisions. They could be mastered by drug addictions. And he said you should never let those things compete for your love. You should never have anything in your life that pushes God farther away from the sinner, so that He goes farther away and others go farther away. What does love require of you? Love requires that you don't let yourself be mastered by something else that puts God out of the picture, out of the center of your life. So think about it. Truth and love. Pretty powerful. How many of you loved chemistry in school? All right, I'm right there with you. One person, all right. Heather took a chemistry class this summer at FGCU. And she'd come home and she'd start talking about the stuff, and I couldn't even get past the first page. Chemistry was not my favorite subject in high school. But chemistry is interesting. There's some amazing things that you can learn about chemistry. Take, for example, sodium. Sodium is an element that we find in our world, only sodium never stands by itself. It usually combines with another element. Take chlorine. Chlorine is that element that we smell when you open a bottle of bleach, or you're in a pool that has really been chlorinated. That's chlorine. Two things, when they come together, become, anybody know? Table salt, sodium chloride. And all of a sudden, one element that can't stand by itself and another element that causes pain, when they come together, all of a sudden, it brings something that causes an element that will preserve and give flavor. When you think about love, they have to go together. Love and truth. For you see, if all you have is love, and it doesn't matter what you do or what anyone else, just so we love each other, love can be a little bit flighty at times. That emotional love, it can just kind of be out there anywhere, and the flowers and all that, and we just all float away and feel good. Love, that's all that matters. Well, then there's truth. Well, truth can be seen as very static and very boring, and even sometimes harmful when truth is given to someone in the wrong way. But when you bring love and truth together, what do you have? You have something that's very powerful. Two things that can come together that can cause us to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. So, what's important? What are you going to do to watch out that you make sure that you don't lose what you've worked for, and that you fully get the reward that is waiting for you? You live a life of knowing the truth, and you live a life of love. And you bring those two things together, and it's amazing what God can do. So let's go out this week. Let's know about some truth, and let's live some love. Let's pray.